You are listening to the Tenets on the Kyle Dempster Studios network. To support us, visit patreon.com/Kyle Dempster Studios. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tenets. My name is Kyle, and I'm joined here by my co-host, as always, StarkeRealm. Hello, Stark. How are ya?
Hey, pretty good.
Good to hear. We are doing our final episode of the year. It is December 30th today, and so Stark had the great idea last week of doing a year in review, which I immediately fell in love with that idea. This is I think I was just saying yesterday on stream, this is only my 6th month into ESO. So I've been playing half the year. I started like mid-June. So Somerset had just launched, and clearly I had no idea what that even meant when I got into it. You know, let me just buy the latest copy of this game. But man, it has been such a great year with nonstop content since I've started. I mean, we've been on a huge roll. So we thought we'd kind of go down this list here with you throughout the episode and just talk about the changes that we've had, because there's been so many new players join the game, so many returning members come back after being gone for years. In fact, I want to say, I just did a little kind of mental math here before the show, but our guild in game on PCNA is now at like 339 members, so we'll say 340. I think like a week ago, I think we've added maybe close to 50 members in the last week and a half or something. So, and those are mainly people that are coming back to the game, a lot of new players. So just to put it in perspective, I mean, that's just what we got through people coming by the Twitch channel. Very impressive numbers. Really, I think a great sign for ESO as they lead head first into 2019, already teasing some things on the horizon. And Stark, am I right? This is their 5th year this upcoming.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 5th anniversary.
Ooh. So I think it's safe to say something anniversary related will happen in some form or another. I mean, it's just likely. Games like to do that. Also, we want to talk a little bit about Rich Lambert's letter. Stark, did you have anything you wanted to kind of point out from this? For those that don't know, Rich Lambert is the creative director for ESO. Anything that really stood out to you in this?
Not a lot. Like, he's had a freaking fantastic year, and it shows.
It really does. I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's interesting that it's coming from Rich. It's not coming from Matt. But yeah, it does kind of show. Rich is legitimately very passionate about the game. He really loves the community. You can see that here. Yeah,
you definitely can. We can link this in the show notes below as well. This came out. pardon me, my lack of voice, everybody. This came out December 19th, so right before they went on their holiday break for the year. But things that stood out to me, I mean, immediately they start by calling out the 3 DLCs, and 3 DLCs and expansion. We'll talk about these in a second, but that would be Dragon Bones and Wolf Hunter, also Meier, which we just had a minute ago, and then the big release of the chapter of Somerset. I think you called out the idea that Rich has been traveling a lot this year.
Oh, yeah.
In here, he calls out, starting with the Twitch live stream announcing Somerset. We had a blast showcasing it. Then he talks about going to PAX East, PAX West, E3, QuakeCon, GamesCon, TwitchCon, RPC, which I don't know what that is.
I'm not sure either.
PAX Australia, and for the first time, Armageddon in New Zealand. So that's a lot in one year. So
it's a lot of travel, yeah.
We got a lot of questions the other day. Is ESO dead? Is ESO dead? Clearly not, because they've got a lot on their plate and they've produced so much content in the last year. It makes my head spin. Actually, and you and I were just talking a minute ago that we come from MMOs that are on a 2-year release cycle. What were you saying about Star Trek Online a minute ago?
Yeah, it was 2 years. Like, there were a couple of times when it was like the 5-episode, like the 5-episode special feature thing that they would do. It was every other year there for a while. I think they finally got it down to once a year, but still, it's in comparison, it's like content every 3 months is nuts.
And I mean, this is great. This release cycle for ESO is a great one because it's something I use when promoting the game to new players that ask that question. Is it dead? Should I come back to it? Should I buy it? I say, hey, unlike games like, and I'm going to throw it at World of Warcraft this time, games like WoW that you only get an expansion every 2 years, we're looking at a lot. And even if it's not a full expansion, I mean, we saw Meier add a story DLC, so that added a zone into the game with new world bosses, new delves, new stuff like, the whole everything in there. So that's something World of Warcraft gives you every 2 years. And maybe sometimes I'm not super up on their release cycle, but I do remember way back closer to 2010, they would add like one little extra zone, maybe every year and a half or something. But it was like, so they'd put a Meier in every year and a half. And it was, I mean, you just can't compare these things. ESO has so much going for it.
Yep.
What else? He did a great, I really loved the little nod to all of the, let's see, where is it in this letter? He throws a nod to the community, especially. Where does it say this? Oh, all the ESO community that works together to make things happen. It's the guilds. They're dedicated to newer developing players, which is what our guild is specifically aimed at. By the way, shout out to all the people that have been coming by the Twitch stream and joining the guild that are from podcast listeners originally. So big shout out to you guys for that. He calls out the guide creators, kick-ass streams. So it was a really nice throwback to the community. And I want to say there was a little something in here. They kind of say, looking forward to kind of teasing you guys with some of the things. Oh, here it is. We're excited to be able to share it with you soon, and we can't wait to see how you put all the pieces together starting early _italics next year. So
I'm going to throw a prediction out here.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have a news drop on the 3rd, so on Thursday.
Oh.
Because that's what happened. I was in prepping for this, I was going back through the news releases from 2018, and the Dragon Bones announcement came on the 4th.
Oh,
so
wow.
They get back into the office after the new year, and then the first news thing about what we're going to be seeing in like 3 months is going to come in the first week. I know there's been some chatter floating around on the forums where people are asking, we don't have a road ahead for next year. Why don't we? Well, we'll get it, but it's going to be probably this week, not right now.
That's a very, very good point. Well, let's before we get too predictive, because we do have some good things to shout out with that on its own. Let's take a look at what we had this year, and then we'll get into kind of, I added something in the show notes here in like the expected release, so we could just spitball that. But so do you want to talk about this a little bit, Stark? Because the first one we have here in the list is Dragon Bones, and this is something that up until maybe a month ago, I thought Dragon Bones was old. So tell us what Dragon Bones brought to the world.
Dragon Bones was 2 new dungeons, Scalecaller Peak and Fang Lair. That was added back in February, I believe. And it also added a bunch of things that you probably didn't realize hadn't been with the game very long.
Right.
Those storage chests you get at your houses that'll let you, carry another 360 items around.
Uh-huh.
That was new this year. I'd forgotten too. I thought those had been around for much longer, but no. The outfit system was added with that. So there was actually a little bit of controversy when that was dropped, because up until that point, when you were customizing your character at any given time, there was no gold cost associated with it. And of course, the outfit system does have a gold cost associated with putting that stuff on your outfit layer. So that caused a little bit of controversy when it happened. It was also the introduction of the leveling rewards. So when you're leveling up and you're getting stuff as you're going to help you keep moving on, that was added there. I couldn't find verification, but I'm pretty sure Dragon Bones was also when the level up advisor was added, the skill advisor. So
okay.
That system, and part of the reason why a lot of people in the community have a sort of weird and slightly dim view of it at times is we remember when it was first being tested and there were some weirdnesses. There's still some weirdnesses, but it is better.
Yeah. It doesn't tell me anything drastically terrible right now, so you can't knock it.
So yeah, that's the big thing there. Like those 4 major changes came in. That's all this year.
That's insane because, like you said, I mean, the outfitting system, storage chests, and leveling rewards, those are all things that feel like if you picked up the game anytime afterwards, you would think that those were tried and true systems that had existed. And again, tried and true, that they had been there. They're like really, I mean, I guess they're so ingrained in our current system. Really smart job with the outfit system. I mean, that,
yeah.
I don't know what it was before. You mentioned there was no gold cost with anything before.
Well, before the outfit system, you saw the costume system that's in the game right now.
Right.
And that was it.
Oh, wow.
You could dye your costumes. You could get a bunch. And that's part of the reason why I have so many. I think I've mentioned that before to you, at least. But I've got a ton of costumes because there was no outfit system. You either wore the gear you were going to use, wanted to look like, or you were going to equip a costume over it. And on top of that, you couldn't change the color of your weapons. Like, you couldn't dye your weapons at all. You couldn't make them look like something else. So you were specifically stuck with the weapons you had. And that also resulted in, for about 3 years, everybody was running around with fire engine red swords on their back.
Oh.
Yeah, it's nice to be done with that. It really is.
I mean, honestly, I saw my character for the first time. So he's currently running Bogdan's, Olarimes, and Mending right now, and I saw him without his outfit system on. Mm-hmm. He is a nightmare. He is a nightmare, man. He's got he looks like a dragon head, but it's one of the, the Oblivion Twilights or whatever they're called. Mm-hmm. So it looks like a dragon head with freaking griffin feather wings on his back. He's terrifying in I want to curl up in the fetal position kind of way. So bless the outfit system. I'm really appreciative that's in the game. Storage chests.
That was something that had been requested for a long time.
Well, and we do have a quirk with it, that some of the colors don't come across fully. That's
been there since the beginning. The dye system is another thing that was added to the game. And now it was added back in 2014, so it's been around for a while.
Okay, that doesn't come with
But some of the dyes have always been a little bit strange. And something I see a lot of people do is they'll sort by the hue. So it's like, here's the yellow dyes, here's the blue dyes, here's the purple dyes. Mm-hmm. Personally, I find that's a mistake because when they sort by common, uncommon, and rare, the common dyes have similar behavior, the uncommon have similar behavior, and the rares have similar behavior. The commons will give you a very flat, sort of static look. The uncommons will tend to be glossy and will be more vibrant. And then the rares will be the ones that behave really strangely when you put them on things. Oh. And so a lot of people and I assume this includes you, is you'll sort it by the colors because that's what makes sense. And because the thumbnails are just these solid color previews. And it's like you'll get Motif Master Brown and you'll click Motif Master Brown and then you're like, why is my stuff purple?
Oh, that's weird. I've not seen that personally, but that's strange.
Yeah. So that's how that works, and that's what's going on there. There's a lot of really cool dyes, but if you sort by rarity, you can usually figure out when a dye is going to behave weirdly and then experiment with it.
Got it.
Yeah.
The storage chest system, unfortunately, introduced a big bug over the summer, it had a bug, but it hit in a larger sense when it ate a fellow streamer's all of their items that were in the storage chests, which I've heard was rectified by. So for anyone that we are potentially scaring, and we've talked about this before. So what had happened is these are storage chests that you buy either through the Crown Store or through the Master Writ system. And you can place these in your houses. They add the extra inventory. You go into each chest. Well, it ate a fellow streamer's gear, a lot of stuff that she'd worked through for vet trials and stuff like that to get. Big disappointment. And unfortunately, I don't think Zos could ever replace all of her gear, but they after repeated tickets and some help from our amazing community managers, got a little bit more traction there, got her more back than was originally offered. However, a patch was put out that said the issue was related to deleting multiple deletions of characters on the login screen and then getting into the game. But she hadn't done that, but the game had kind of glitched out when she was deleting one. So strange all around in how it took effect. But unfortunately, I heard, and I can't verify this, but I heard rumor that someone else had this happen to them after the patch. So I have to say I don't use them, and I have no intention of buying more because they scare me, Stark. They scare me.
That's fair.
Are you using them still? What is your take on this? Okay.
I'm somewhat careful about what I put in them, but mostly it's stuff that if I lose it, I wouldn't care anyway.
Fair point. I usually stash housing items in there, just I guess not rare ones anymore. So
yeah. It's also not surprising. Like this is storage chests were something that was requested when housing was first added.
Oh.
Because obviously before housing was added last year, there wasn't really much call for it. So they were added in. They were actually brought in about a year after housing came in. And there have been some weird little quirks along the way with them. Most of the worst have not made it to live. And so we can be fortunate for that. But yeah, that one there, especially given how rare it is, it's really hard to track down and figure out what's going on. And then, yeah, it's just worrying.
Yeah.
It's a little worrying. I still love them for what they are, and I still think they're a really great addition to the system because it does give you one more thing you can use your house for. It's also really nice because it does help alleviate the weight on the bank.
Good point.
It's got some teething issues that really need to be figured out.
Yeah, because I'd love to use them. Last thing here, I don't think I heard you call this out, but the block calculation changes. Did you mention that, Stark?
I didn't. I was deciding whether or not I was going to coup, but there we go.
Let's do it.
The thing with the block calculation changes is they reworked the way sturdy and the block cost discounts worked with Dragon Bones. So for tanks, this meant that blocking became a lot less efficient. But the part of the problem was before this, you had tanks that could nearly completely negate stam costs for blocking.
Oh, wow.
And so we were almost back to the perma block tanks from back at launch. And that's something that's really not intended with the game. So that was changed with Dragon Bones. And as a result, it's a much narrower gain for going full sturdy and having cost discount enchantments. You can still tank, like I still do tank, but it does make it a little bit harder to just sit there and soak everything. So on the whole, it's actually a good change. It just hurts, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this next one I love, and it's funny, I didn't love it at first, but we got Somerset. And I should say I didn't love it at first because it was too pretty for me at first. I was like, this land is too beautiful, and it doesn't feel like I should be going here yet because I feel like it's later in the game or something like that. And then the next thing you know... I mean,
it is later in the game, but...
True. Next thing you know, I buy a house there, and I love Somerset. I spend all my time in Alinor. So... This comes as the second chapter to Elder Scrolls Online, following Morrowind happening the year prior. And did you want to talk for a second here about Morrowind in the notes?
Yeah, there's something interesting that happened with Somerset, and this is going to come into the predictive stuff later. Mm-hmm. But with Morrowind, when Somerset released, there were some changes immediately with Morrowind. Before this, Morrowind was a separate purchase. It didn't come with ESO Plus. Mm-hmm. And it had a couple of systems that were just baked into, if you bought it, you got them. Mm-hmm. One of them was Battlegrounds. Those did not used to be open to everybody. I think you knew that.
I did, yes.
Vardenfell itself, like the landmass, was, I guess just said, not available with ESO. And the Warden was bundled in with Morrowind. So if you wanted that, you had to buy it through the whole bundle. Couldn't get one of these pieces at a time. When Somerset rolled out, one of the immediate changes was that Battlegrounds became base game for everybody. So this helped enormously because now everybody can get in and can participate in that form of combat. It helps that environment a lot because when you're dealing with a small scale PvP like this, having a small community means it's very hard for new players to penetrate.
Yeah.
And
good point.
This has helped with that enormously. Vardenfell becoming an ESO Plus thing, and this is something that's going to predictions for next year, but it does mean that you aren't overly penalized for coming to the game late. It means that if you started this year, like you did, you're never going to be in a situation where it's like, oh, hey, there's this whole succession of 15 chapters, and I need to buy each of them for $30 each. That never happens.
Thank goodness.
And then the Warden getting moved to the Crown Store, that was actually pretty widely requested in some sectors, because I remember seeing forum threads where people were like, I just want to buy the Warden and anything else. Also seeing people going, the Warden's pay to win, which it's not, but you know.
Right.
You know. So those were the major changes there, and it gives us some ideas, or at least gives me some ideas, on what we might be doing next year.
I mean, I'm going to speak ahead here for a second, but we see the introduction of jewelry crafting in Somerset, which is a system that is cool, but also we were just talking about this the other day, and I would say I'm a crafting novice still, even though I've got most of my traits, but I'm not an expert. I don't understand the entirety of the market so well. But jewelry crafting, wow, expensive, very hard to get the stuff for it. Do you think that we're going to get that rolled into the base game like we saw Battlegrounds here? Probably.
That's
with the
my
next
suspicion.
one.
Yeah, if anything's coming over to base game, I suspect it's that.
I get that vibe too, just because it's a cool thing. Somerset's dirt cheap. As a reminder, I mean, if you're listening to this still right now, you can upgrade using the ESO store. It's $15 to upgrade to it, or $20 to buy Somerset plus the base game. So it's a good deal.
Yeah. The thing about jewelry crafting, though, that's really crazy is it blew the doors off of build options. Oh. So, like last year, if you wanted to do a STAM DPS, right, you would never really seriously consider advancing Yokuda because it's a tank set. It has a health modifier on the jewelry. The body pieces are in heavy armor. There's no ranged weapon at all. It doesn't drop a ranged weapon because that can't proc it. But you wouldn't use it because even if you went with jewelry and weapons, it's still healthy jewelry. Similar story with a lot of other stuff that sometimes it was good enough to make the cut. Seventh Legion is an example of that. That was a set that it's a heavy armor set, but it still saw use on some DPS, usually for PvP because the advantages outweighed the cost, and you'd slot it on your jewelry and you'd slot your weapons. And well, jewelry crafting means that when you're looking at existing sets, you can retrait them and change them to have the trait you want, which means you can take sets that are intended for a tank or intended for a DPS and change the trait on them so that they're useful for you. Before this, and something I know I've mentioned to you before, like I used Sanctuary on a tank. Before jewelry crafting, there was only one piece of jewelry you could get for it that was in healthy. So what you want, the trait you want is a tank, and that was the neck. You could get the rings, but they were always going to be in arcane. Even the unique variants were both arcane. And so if you wanted that on a tank, you had to farm Banish 2 to get the healthy neck. Just as much as you could get at health anyway. And then you do the weapons and you get the jewelry and you're good to go. But this changed that stuff. This opened up a lot of sets that were before very niche and let you swap those around. Also, it opened up a lot of the crafting sets to being able to make those and run two crafted sets together. Wow. And that did not used to be possible either, because it used to be like, and you might have seen this too, like a STAM DPS, basic STAM DPS recommendation last year would have been get 5-piece Hundings, get 4-piece Night Mother's Gaze, and then get 3 pieces of agility jewelry, because you can't craft the jewelry. But if you're dual wielding, you do have 10 open slots on your character's body plus the 2 for your weapons. So you had enough you could get this setup going just as a starting point, but you didn't have the option to mess with your jewelry. And now you can just stack another crafted set on there. Now, like you mentioned, actually crafting jewelry, or well, more specifically, actually upgrading jewelry is very expensive and very time consuming, but that was an option that didn't exist at all. So it was just farm for jewelry or deal with what you had before. That's different. That's great. I've been mentioning this, and this isn't from this year. This is actually from last year, but it's another system that you might not realize how recent it is. The retrading system came in with Clockwork City. So that's only a little over a year old at this point. Yeah.
I still find that system crazy. I mean, it's great. It's amazing. It helps a ton of people, but I'm like, wow, you let us do that? And other games kind of would laugh in our faces for that ability.
Yeah.
Grind it for the next 10 years to get what you want. We don't care. Here at ESO, though, they're like, nope, you can work. I mean, we're very lucky to be so flexible with our gear here. I mean, the idea that gear isn't even locked to your character so much is just a blessing. You know, you can throw it in the bank and like share it between them. That's unheard of a lot of the time. So, that's something that feels a lot older than it is. The Sigic skill line. This addition to Somerset was one that people are very, very, very mixed about, because the I'm gonna say it. This was a misstep in the way that you level up the skill line, in my opinion, with going around and clicking on all the portals, closing little time rifts, whatever they're called. I don't know why that made it into the game. That seems like a really boring way to do it. I guess you could say it's the same as the Mages Guild, but the Mages Guild was also introduced at base game, right? So we've had years to learn that lore book hunting isn't exactly the most fun thing in the world.
There's a little bit of a difference here, though.
Please, by all means, save
So
save
two
it.
things happens. One of them is actually from last year, which was Vardenfell. Each time there's been a new release, they've changed each time there's been a new chapter release, they've changed the starting tutorial. So there's one on Vardenfell, which I don't think you've seen at all.
I have, actually. I when I started ESO, I started with even though I was out. Right, Somerset had just come out, but I picked up the base game. It was just
okay, cool. So yeah, you have seen that.
The
you've seen that
Slaver
tutorial.
one, right? Yeah.
So there's the Slaver tutorial, and then there's the Somerset tutorial where you're in the mine trap.
Yep.
And what would happen with Vardenfell, and I saw this with a number of players, is they'd get to Vardenfell, and almost all the quests there are self-contained on the island. So they'd run around the world space of Vardenfell. And as far as I can tell, would never realize they could leave.
That's a fair point, because I almost didn't realize I could leave until someone said, I was like, oh, I hate this mushroom land. Sorry, Morrowinders, I didn't like it. But I was like, I hate this. And people, it might have even been you, I don't know. Someone was like, you can actually just get to that way shrine and go somewhere else. So they saved me.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is a real thing. And I remember I've rescued stranded players that get lost on Vardenfell before, like not recently. It happened. So what happens with the Psijic skill line is if you follow the main quest on Somerset, you get introduced to a new map very early on. And Artaeum forces you to back out and actually see the world map. So you get there and then it's like, okay, well, I can take a step back and I see, oh, whoops, this is a huge freaking map. And because if you're in Artaeum, when you try to step back once on the map, it will give you, the continent with the outer rings.
Yep.
It'll give you an idea much sooner that, oh, wait, there's a lot more here than just this single island. The Psijic skill line gets dropped right in front of your face, like the quest pickup for as you're running through the main quest. And then what it does after that is really actually kind of clever. It's another thing that it hurts. It's unpleasant to the player, but it teaches you something really important, which is it gets you to get out of the DLC zone and wander around the base game a lot.
That's a good point. That is a redeeming quality right there. Good call.
Now, I'll grant you, when you're doing it on your fourth character, it's kind of like, okay, thanks. Why am I here? It does wear out its novelty very quickly, and especially if you're a player who has prior experience with it, and this is a lot of legitimate criticism. You certainly heard this, especially with players who've been around for more than even just a very brief period of time. The catch with it is, yeah, we already know this stuff is there. We've already wandered around here. We get the hint, and it's like, okay, well, I know what this space looks like, and I've got to go there. Does not help that it takes people to one of the least popular zones in the game very early on. Again, the Alakir, it's desert. But yeah, it is actually really clever for what it is. I think it could be better. I think it could have been more streamlined, but at the same time, I think it does set a nice balance between here's a skill line that's very easy to level, and it's very useful to the player, but it's also teaching you things. Something else really important about Psijic skill line, and I really like this. It was pointed out to me, so this is not just like out of my head. The crushing weapon ability, like the very first one you get, or maybe it's the second one you get.
I think it's second. That second's imbue weapon. So
yeah, second is imbue. Okay, so what imbue weapon's going to actually make you do is it's going to start teaching you, oh, by the way, weaving is a thing.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. So the Psijic skill line does two things overall. Like it's trying to introduce new players to the game and give them tools that will ask them to expand their horizons and realize what they can do with the game. And the other thing is it plugs a lot of holes that specific classes have had to deal with and not had a real option for in specific roles.
Oh.
One of the ones, like crushing weapon and imbue weapon, like an elemental weapon, have rapidly become one of the best spammables available for some classes, particularly the warden. The meditate has become incredibly useful for tanks. Undo is still kind of weird. It's there, it's a thing. Mending is like mend wounds is an ability that I see people try to use it, and I think it's actually a good way to start getting people to the idea of, oh, hey, you can heal, you can play as the healer, but it's
lackluster.
It's a little lackluster for end game.
Yes.
Like if you're a dedicated healer, you've got your gear, you know what you're doing, this isn't going to cut it. But if you're new to the game and you're like, well, can I heal? Like, what is this healing thing? It's like, oh, hey, here, now you have the ability to actually become the healer.
Very
when
good
you otherwise
point.
wouldn't be able to. And I do understand, like, where it's, people are like, well, this is boring, like the process of finding the rifts and closing the rifts, but I do think it manages to gets as close to the balance as it could between this is fast and smooth to level. It will show you new things if you're a new player, and it's not pay to win.
Right.
Because if it was just like, oh, arrive on Arteum and have dialogue we've got Keith Sarbakia over there voicing this guy. Talk to him for the next, 5 minutes, and then, oh, hey, look, 10 ranks in a skill line. That would be kind of absurd.
Right. Especially if they were the best skills in the game. So. And
some of them are very good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it asks you to actually spend some time. Oh, yeah, and then there's one of the other ones is like if you're using the Sigic skill line, the concentrated barrier where you block and you get a fairly chunky shield for something that's otherwise just have an ability slotted in.
Right.
So, yeah,
that's kind of why I wish the mending wounds thing was a little more appropriate for healers, because we get to take advantage of some of that passive stuff. Meh. That's a very good point, though. Like, I didn't look at first of all, I didn't look at the line as one that moved us all throughout the world in that way for new players. That's a good point. I also didn't really think about, the mending wounds one being worth anything. So I guess that's a good point too there.
Yeah.
That redeems them a bit.
There's somewhere I still look at it and I'm like, was this a wise choice? Accelerate is still weird to me. I understand why everybody wants access to the ability to move faster.
Yep.
But that's always, like, that specific one is always weird to me, especially with the PvP line, having it as the first thing. And now with login rewards, you're going to get the PvP, the first tier in PvP, sooner or later, accidentally.
Makes sense.
So, overall, I think that the line actually does some very smart things. Like, from a design standpoint, it's pretty sharp.
Yeah.
But I do also understand, like, there's a lot of frustration over people came to it and they're like, I don't understand what the theme is here. Like, it's because it's not aimed at you.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Let's see. We got a couple things to talk about here that we might be able to take a little quicker because they're not super complicated ones. Introduction of the login rewards came with Somerset.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
That came with the console drops. So that's another nice little thing. It's I'm actually going to shout them out for this because it was really nice.
Yeah,
I've played Legends since last summer, so the Elder Scrolls card game. They consistently were doing a thing where the last day of the month was the day you got your best reward. ESO has never done that. And it was something I've said it directly to Rich before. In fact, this is really nice that you guys did not say, okay, you need to log in every day this month or you get screwed at the end.
Yeah.
It is so nice to be able to say, okay, if I accidentally miss 4 or 5 days, I'm not hosed. I really love that about this system, especially in comparison to some other games I've played where it really is like log in every day or just miss out on cool stuff. And it is cool stuff. That's the other neat thing about this. Like the login rewards are consistently, here's some neat stuff to encourage you to log in. It's one of these sort of systems that can be predatory because you're trying to get people back every day. But I think this is a really nice structure where it's like there's neat stuff here, but it's not overpowering. The only downside is now I have so many ground tripods I don't know what to do with.
Oh, wait, you can't do that.
Yeah, tripods, can't really.
Shoot. Well, you can use them. Start popping them
use them on
everywhere you
tanks.
go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
You kind of mentioned, I think you kind of mentioned, you said with console drops, we got Twitch drops that came around. So so I've never streamed ESO without the ability to have Twitch drops enabled. Very cool system that really helped get a lot of the community onto Twitch, which seems like a very strategic thing because the Twitch community, I hear, has improved drastically over the previous years, specifically with the introduction of who would have thought that the hashtag ESO fam I mean, I'm looking at Rich's letter here. He literally calls it out. Hashtag ESOFam isn't just a catchy hashtag. It's the truth in our community and something very special to all of us here at ZOS. So literally, I heard that people often will say that hashtag ESOFam has changed the face of Twitch streaming for the most part, that the good people have rallied around and kind of the more toxic streamers that I guess were there but have never seen kind of got strangled out and maybe left and went on to some other game or have stopped streaming.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely the right person to ask about what Twitch looked like last year, because aside from some people in the Dark Souls community, I never so much as looked at Twitch before I met Ryan and met Ninja and some of the others at ZOS. So,
and now you're a diehard. Look at you.
Oh yeah, no, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? But yeah, so in that sense, like I didn't see what the Twitch community looked like last year. I know that this was something that the streamers who'd been with the game for years have been begging for, is more support from ZOS, and they're finally getting that, and it's paid out in dividends, and amazing dividends for the community.
Yeah,
and the Twitch community now is it's fantastic.
I mean, it's all. I mean, I think it's hard to go down that list and find a streamer that won't help you out. Like, many of these streamers will bend over backwards for it. I mean, Gina and I were just in talks. We just right before Christmas gave out. She hooked me up with codes to give out fortifying crown meals, the big health buff ones that are from the crown store, to new players that just opened up accounts. So like very cool support, like you were saying, for new players. I mean, the Twitch pets that we can give away, the crown packs we can give away, that's all stuff that really entices people to participate and, talk with one another. And I mean, I'm tooting our own horn here, but the guild that I'm in, that I have, everyone is so helpful. And I've actually gotten a couple compliments, new players coming into chat and stuff saying like, hey, your guild is just full of nice people. They help me craft this set and that and the other. And I mean, that's what ZOS wants. Like that is A+ community managing right there, that if you get your streamers who are on there for their own reasons streaming to help out the community, then everyone kind of wins. So Twitch drops A+. Crown Store gifting. That's something that I think is almost good timing on those two being combined, because I use Crown Store gifting a lot as a streamer. I'll run my own little giveaways, kind of just out of pocket, out of my own crowns that I get each month to send some gifts to people. So I guess that wasn't a thing until summer-ish.
It's a little bit more complicated because technically it did exist before that, but there was no way to do it through the UI. So what would happen is you'd have to contact customer support and say, I want to buy this for somebody else. So then customer support would have to attach that to their account and then charge you. Like it was doable. It would happen, but it was something that had to happen entirely on the customer support side. That was a deliberate choice, and they apparently reversed course on that and said, okay, well, we'll put it into the UI directly, which is a really nice change.
I'm sure it has paid them very well for their change of plan, because I know people love gifting crown stuff to streamers, and I see it happen all the time. So I'm sure their pockets are very happy with that decision. Oh, yeah. And I mean, I've seen no real issues with it either. I also have to say that's really nice that they would even allow that kind of thing beforehand with the, having to open a ticket. I mean, a lot of companies will just ignore that sort of stuff. So
yeah, exactly. Customer support, like, I've got a few horror stories squirreled away, but for the most part, ESO's customer support is just freaking fantastic.
Yeah, they really are. Let's see. Do you want to cover the next two quickly, Stark? We are.
Yeah, the balance changes. Yeah, well, we should be fine for. The significant balance class changes. I'm just going to skim over this. There were a lot of things that happened in our set with the way some of the classes work. Nightblades had a self heal added. One of the cloak morphs used to be a defense focused thing that never. Right, so that was changed. Some stuff like the sorcerer having a block mitigation bonus, like that's what bound armor does now, did not used to be the case. It used to be that bound armor was actually a toggle that you had to have on both bars. There was a lot of stuff that changed there with Somerset's drop, and the big focus on it was to try to make sure that all four of the base game classes, because the Warden was already with this ethos in mind, but all four of the base game classes would be able to do DPS, healing, and tanking.
Wow! And
so they all picked up new stuff, and the underused skills got rotated out and replaced with stuff that would more benefit those roles. I remember that the Ash Cloud, I think it's Ash Cloud more for the DK that heals, was just straight up new. I don't remember what the old version was. I think it was like mitigation or something. That was changed to just straight up be, okay, well, we'll put that there and it's a healing effect. So yeah, there were a lot of changes with Somerset, and I'd actually need to look at the patch notes to see them all. Also, one crazy thing that I really loved was they changed Silver Leash back to pulling enemies to you, which meant the chains, which is a really important tanking skill for DKs, was now available to everybody. That's huge. That was a massive change and expanded options for players. And sort of related to that, and this is something else that's going to be kind of alien to you, two-handed weapons were changed so they would count as 2 set pieces with Somerset. And that didn't used to be the case. So like if you were building a character back last year and you wanted to be like a mag DPS, you could not do 2 5-piece bonuses and a monster set.
Wow.
You had to pick and choose. Yeah. And in fact, if you dig around through old builds, you're going to find stuff that looks really weird now. You'll find a lot of mag builds that would run dual wield.
Oh, interesting.
Because then they get to benefit from both sets while it's front barred. And it's like they couldn't regenerate magicka from it, but they're just running around dual wielding and then, casting spells off of it without just giving up their weave entirely. So that was a huge change. It meant that everybody could run 2 5-piece sets and a 2-piece monster set, which has sort of become the de facto standard. And it was a really big thing, along with the jewelry crafting. Absolutely exploded options on builds that you could actually run. This is an amazing year, amazing release in that sense, because all kinds of crazy stuff happened together.
I cannot believe that. I mean, that staves were considered just a single piece. That's
also two-handed weapons and bows. So like if you were running a bow back bar, that was like, you didn't have a 5-piece bonus back there.
I'd also like to call out that Steam, sorry, this is a little off the thing, I just got a notification. Steam has Elder Scrolls Online listed as one of their top 12 grossing games of the year in sales. So, take that, people that think it's dead. Sorry, I had to put that little in there because it is related to Somerset that pushed it to the cool. I'm really happy. Sorry, circling back around from that little neat notification. I am really happy with that change because that I can't imagine playing, the way we're talking about before without having two-handers count as 2 pieces. So good work right there.
Yeah. That was an amazing change. Like it's something that had been kicked around all on the boards and I think on Reddit too, but it was something where there's no real consensus in the community. And then here it is. It's like, wow.
It feels, I think that all relates. It relates even back around that notification that they're really getting things in a solid state. People are saying this is the golden year of, or these last 2 even, wherever you want to draw that line. You played longer than I, but it really does feel like I came into an ultra solid game this year. Which is why it's no surprise to me that it's doing so well in sales, because you come in and it doesn't feel like this weird, uncomfortable mess. Instead, it feels like it's very streamlined with the promise that there's even better things coming out right around the corner. Maybe segues right into our next point. Well,
I was just going to say before you jumped off of that, there is one thing, a major difference with Somerset from Vardenfell. Because again, as much as I love Vardenfell, you might have seen this yourself. It does feel like an end game zone. It's brutal. You've got a lot of enemies that have some fairly complex attack patterns just right next to where you start.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the first enemies you're going to see is a troll, and it's got a regen ability. It's got directed conal AoEs. It's got a ground pound. It's a full, like a full point blank AoE, and this stuff can all wreck you.
That's a great point.
And those are the nearest enemies when you come out. I think if you head south, your first encounter is going to be like a Nixox or a Cliffstrider, and those things have, again, they've got a charge, they've got a conal AoE, like they've got some really nasty stuff up their sleeve, and they're not shy about using it.
That troll is so hard to kill in Vardenfell when you just start out, because he's got that regen. It's just like, how do I beat this with my first two to three spells I've got? I mean, you got 2 DPS spells and a heal. If I remember doing my Templar, so I was like, or whatever your third one is. Usually it's not DPS related, so you're kind of just like throwing nothing at this thing and hoping it dies. And
because you haven't internalized the idea of bashing yet.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, Vardenfell is really brutal to start with, and I think there's a real change with Somerset, where it's like it just rolls straight over into this is a much less vicious zone.
I would definitely agree. I was gonna say, kind of to wrap Somerset, and I love the naming convention here, that we saw the summer fall event, so the close of summer, with the big community event where we all worked together to unlock the Pathfinder achievements in Somerset, which then progressed the community bar further and further and further, so that we unlocked the Sijic pony pet, the Sijic horse mount, and then the Grand Sijic Villa. Which was, we have differing opinions on the event. I think I can get behind the idea that I think that it was well executed, and I think to your point, which I think you made over the summer, was that it really got the community to work together, and it was a great testing ground for community events. I really hope we see more. I would like to see in some form. I mean, me and other streamers have just been kind of shooting the shit with this idea, but I'd love to see things that we could almost set up within guilds and things like that, some sort of community, like let's work together. I mean, sure, if you're a really creative person out there and you have an idea of how we could do something like that, I'm all ears. But it would be cool if the game gave us some tools or just set some goalposts that we could kind of work together with each other to do things like that. It would just be interesting. Do you think we're going to see more of this in the future, Stark? These community events?
I suspect so. I don't think we're going to see this exact thing again. Like, I don't think it's going to be, oh, hey, Pathfinder, because there was some grumbling when that was going on about that, and there was an element with it where people were kind of like, some people were like, well, it's a sham, and they were being grumbling, and they were going, no, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to contribute. And it's like, so I was actually very worried while the event was going on that it was like, this is going to go pear-shaped, and then the community pulled it out. I'm really impressed with them for that. I think moving forward that there's going to be some revision to the system, to the structure. I don't know what that's going to look like. I know the one you were asking for at the time, because you hadn't experienced Witches Festival yet, but you were asking for something like that, where it was like go and kill bosses or go and run dungeons and clear those. So it might be something like that. It might be something where you can actually participate repeatedly, and
that's
be balanced around that.
I wanted repeatability. That's the only thing I felt like I lacked. I was like, got it done first day, and I really didn't even get to help that many people get taxied around to all the different way shrines after that point. I mean, the community had it in the bag. Anytime someone would ask in my guild, someone else was on it. So I was like, okay, I'm done day one. I'll go over to the EU server, do it, and now I'm done.
Yeah.
I'd like the repeatability. I did some
taxiing, but it's... On the other hand, you did get people talking to each other, so there's always, like, that's an upside. I think it was a fantastic event from the goal of getting people to interact. But yeah, I think it could have been something where it's like, it could be better, but this was actually really good.
I agree.
I think we'll see more of this in the future. I just don't know what it's going to look.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if they ever want to change up some of the holiday events. I really wouldn't mind seeing something become more of a community event too, if they ever want to do a refresh on anything. You know, I'm not targeting one thing particularly, so don't worry, guys. I'm not trying to steal your thunder, anyone out there that is afraid. But if they ever want to rework or refresh, I think that, there's no fear, or there shouldn't be much fear in adding a community element to it, because it definitely worked. That moves us into Wolf Hunter, which I think did drop over the summer still.
Yeah, it did. It was, it was still in the summer.
August? I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds right. August or September sounds right. Yeah.
We're professionals. We'll say August. Throw a dart at the thing. I mean, so Somerset came out in June. We'll say it felt about Augusty when this came out, because it was still summertime, still wonderful weather and all that. And then this hit, and I didn't get into it at the time. This was the DLC dungeons that they added. So they added Moon Hunter Keep and March of Sacrifices into the game. So both harder dungeons. One that Gina invited me to play on the live stream with the team and Zynode, and we it's Gina and Jess, and we got killed a couple times but had a blast, and now we're running it on Vet on the side. Really cool dungeons, really pretty dungeons, actually. Beautiful.
Yeah, extremely beautiful.
Beautiful. So what else do we see here, Stark? Because I see one I see the first one in the notes, and it's a big one.
Yeah, so there were changes to the werewolf with this. A lot of this was focused more on making it accessible to newer players and players who hadn't spent a lot of time. I've got this really weird perspective with the werewolf because I turned my first werewolf back in 2014, and it looked very different back then. So over the years, it's gotten easier and easier to manage werewolf, and not just as a skill threshold, but they've actually made changes. This one of the big changes to the werewolf was giving it the ability to help sustain its form without having to feed constantly. So your outgoing damage now actually increases your timer. And then also changing the way the feed system worked so that it's a channeled recovery instead of being this thing where you have to sit there and finish the entire eating animation. And these sound like small things, but they have a huge impact on how playable the werewolf is for most players. And yeah, it was a fantastic change for that. Like it's one of the things, one of the mechanics in the game I really enjoy, even though I don't have any werewolves at this point. And yeah, that was something that had been asked for a long time, because before this, I don't think they'd been updated at all since Dark Brotherhood.
Wow.
Even before that, maybe.
Wow. Yeah, I heard nothing. I think I heard nothing but positive reviews on the werewolf changes. I don't think I got. I mean, you might have seen different things on the forums. I'm sure everyone loves to complain there, but yeah, that's their pastime. But in game, I've never heard someone go like, "I hate these werewolf changes." In fact, I think quite the opposite. I think a lot of I've seen more positive remarks come out saying that people are enjoying it, they're having more fun with it, they're staying in it longer, and just all around, good job.
Very good.
This
Let's
one.
see. We've also got,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Battleground outfit styles. These are really cool, and this was something that wasn't in the game. Though I do need to kind of realize I made a mistake here, because the alternate motifs for Scalecaller Peak and Fang Lair were added in with Somerset. So there was those came out of the dailies for doing your battlegrounds, and then the actual outfit motifs we get now that come out of Wolf Hunter are from that. And that was the first time something completely unique and new was inserted into the outfit system in a player accessible way, I think.
Huh. Interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, so those are really cool. That's a neat addition. Also the respec system overhaul. Like this was, there was a lot of salt about this, but I love it.
Yeah, this thing's amazing. So for those that don't know, or that are just getting in now, the respec system that I came into just a month or so prior to Wolf Hunter, when you went to a shrine of, who is it, Stendar? Is it Stendar?
It varies. It changes depending on which shrine.
If you go to a shrine to remove your skill points or to respec your skill points, it used to remove all of your skill points and just shove them into your, your skill point pool is now full of everything, which is a pain in the butt, because if you just want to change some DPS spells around here and there, I don't need to unspec all of my crafting things that are, complex and detailed and have their own way of being handled. So they changed the system to one where you can now remove on a point by point basis. I believe if you still want to, they still have an option to pull all the points.
Yeah, you can still purge every point spent. You can also purge every point in a given skill line spent.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, it's a vast improvement.
So I remember thinking that we were only going to have to spend as many gold as we were removing points, and I remember thinking I was a little bit bummed about that. But that went.
Yeah, you weren't the only one that made that assumption, and there were a lot of people who are like, "Wait, why isn't it having to spend the full respec cost just to move 3 points around?"
Right.
Fundamentally, it didn't change the way respecting works in the game. It just made it so that respecking was not time consuming.
And boy, I mean, it has saved so much time, because I went over and I respect someone. Oh, I got into a Stam Warden the other day that I very rarely play, and immediately was like, oh, he doesn't need these points into these spells that won't have a Stam morph. So when I was pulling them out, I only had to do those like 3 or so spells so he could actually pick useful things for his build. And it just, I mean, it would have been a nightmare to have to do everything from scratch. So again, in my opinion, a very good quality of life improvement there. That leads us, I think, do you have anything else for Wolf Hunter, Stark?
I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it. Like there's a lot of stuff that came in with all of these, and we're trying to keep it somewhat succinct.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Next up, my I don't know if I want to say least favorite of the year. I guess I had put a little bit more weighed into it in my head, or maybe it was due to the release cycle of having the Witches Festival and then this DLC coming out. But our story DLC for the year, Meier, taking us into the Argonian Heartland area. It was hit with some mixed review. I wouldn't say it was bad, but I think on the show we've said before it felt a little bit like kind of a mix of maybe too many cooks in the kitchen and something that's simmered for too long.
A little bit.
Some people love it. If you love Argonian stuff, you'll probably love, or probably did love, Meier. In this, we got some other quality of life improvements. We got the character sorting at the login screen. Hooray!
It's been requested for a long time.
And it's wonderful, because I just did it the other day again, and I was like, this is great. You want to talk about this one, Stark? Cyrodiil structures vulnerable to sieges.
So this is something about PvP. You haven't spent...
I've been in there recently, but I never saw it before.
Yeah. Okay, so originally the design of the game is you have castles and forts scattered all across Cyrodiil, and you can siege them and siege down walls. And so the entire structure of the game as a point system is you want to capture the various strategic points for your alliance and just move through. What changed is there are certain choke points on the map, or were certain choke points on the map, that players would have to be funneled through if they were wanting to move from one area to another. These would be things like bridges. They would be things like these sort of watch houses where you've got somebody had put up this wall between these two mountains, and you've got to go through the gatehouse there.
Well, these are the mile gates, is that right?
Yeah, mile gates. What happened with Meier is those can now be assaulted with siege engines and destroyed partially. So a lot of stuff that kept Cyrodiil kind of predictable over the years just got knocked out the window. Like the environment itself got changed so that this stuff could be torn up in combat. And it sounds like a very minor thing, but it's actually pretty significant in context, because it means you don't have the endless slogs at the bridge outside of Alessia, for one thing.
Wow. It's very fun, actually. I got a PvP healer set going now, and it's been a blast. We've been going in there with groups of like 5 to 10 people from the guild, roughly. So if you guys haven't checked out open world PvP in Cyrodiil, definitely let me know if you're playing on PC North America, because that stuff's really fun if you have people on your faction that you can group with a little bit. I don't know if I wouldn't have fun personally if I was going in there by myself, but it's the strategy between teammates, and I think you're right. I think that adds a lot to it, because I did get to see a mile gate sieged for the first time yesterday, which really helped us corner in the EP in their own area. So it just made it, we created a meat grinder there, and they would just try and come over. It was their wall, it was their gate, but still it worked to their disadvantage to have it closed up, because they were trying to do one of those big PvP balls and they couldn't do it. So it was great. You can really live out your sieging fantasies in Cyrodiil. Has that been hit with good success in the community, do you think? Did that go through
As far as I can tell, yeah. It's hard to get information out of the PvP segment of the community unless something's broken, at which point you find out about it. But yeah, this seems to have worked pretty well, because I don't hear any complaints. So
I feel you there. Housing editor improvements. Ooh, this one's up my alley, although I only remember the one, I think. Biggest
There's
one.
two.
Yeah, so you're going to have to help me with number 2. I can't remember the second. But the first one being that we could group items in houses, which is really, really amazing. If you're someone that is... if you're used to moving things around and you've got a perfect setup with a bunch of small items, being able to move those items as a group, being able to keep a scene the way it is, but just move that kind of scene into a different room, that's a huge time saver. Just be careful with it, because anytime you're moving items where you might have one that's moved out of eye shot, you have the potential of putting it into the wall. That's not really an ESO sort of thing. That's just a kind of it's on the player to be responsible for that. I hate to say it. What was our other one?
The undo and redo features.
Oh, hard to believe that wasn't there 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's new. That was new. Meier dropped.
Wow. I feel like I actually had a dream about that. Is that bad? Does that mean I play too much
Yeah,
ESO?
it's terrifying.
Like, I think I maybe just dreamed of the undo feature last night. And now I'm remembering, but if someone screws it up, I can just undo it. I think I'm addicted.
If you're there, yeah.
I'm
addicted. A little bit.
Help! That's a good one. That's a great feature to have, though, because, and I've used it recently when just trying some different things here and there. Like, I can just move that, redo it if I don't like it. So that's basically it for Meier. I think overall, actually, and that does it for all of our DLC and expansions this year. So I thought we could just spend a minute towards the end and talk what we expect for a release cycle, because again, going from earliest in the year to most recent, for 2018 we saw Dragon Bones Dungeon DLC come out, Somerset the Chapter, Wolf Hunter the DLC dungeons, and Meier the Story DLC. And then 2017, prior to me playing, started off the year with Homestead, which added in housing to the game. I also cannot believe that system is barely
that
2
recent?
years old. Yeah. I mean, I guess it'll be 2
it's
years
not 2
old.
years yet. Yeah,
Right.
It's going to be 2 years in a few months.
So that's insane because it is so flat. I mean, there's upwards of 30 homes, maybe 50. So there's a lot.
It's a lot. I'll give you something even crazier, though, to think about for a second. With Homestead, consider how much gold it costs to buy those things legitimately, and realize there was no gold sink like that in the game 2 years ago.
Oh my God, people's banks must have just been
nuts.
spewing gold out at the seams. What else? We got the Dark Brotherhood that came out. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one.
No, you skipped a year.
Down a whole year. Morrowind, as I said, didn't seem right. Morrowind came out as their chapter in 2017, so that would be their version of Somerset. Horns of the Reach came out in 2017 as their dungeon DLC, as well as the Clockwork City, which was the story DLC. So those things are only now just a year old, depending, maybe two, or getting to two, I should say. So that's pretty impressive. And now 2016 is where the cycle changes. This is as far back as we're going to go. But you got the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood DLCs. Those are both story DLCs, as we'd say. Shadow of the Hiss, that's just dungeons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's Cradle of Shadows and Ruins of Mazatoon.
Yep, or Marzipan, as you like to say.
Cradle of Spiders.
What is? It really is. And then one Tamriel came out that year. Is that right? That's hard to believe.
Yeah, that's only been 2 years. Yeah.
So,
wow, is that right? Yeah, that's only been 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So with all of that being said, I mean that for anyone that played, I guess 3 years is, well, I think we could say 2 years is kind of like the real
I think
goal.
actually if we're going to predict for further out, we probably should cover 15. So 2015 only had 2 releases. It was the summer and the fall release. Okay. So last 2 slots. And that was, we got Imperial City and then we got Hrothgar. Because that summer was the console release. Oh. And if you go back to the spring, that was the champion system. That was the leisureman system. So, thieving and fencing stuff. That wasn't in at launch. That was added in post-launch in the second, going into the first year.
Wow. It's just, I don't know. It's insane to think how much this game has apparently changed. And I have to say apparently because I didn't see. Oh, it's so changed. Yeah,
a lot.
So with that kind of, specifically the last 2 years being a cycle of two dungeon DLCs, one, well, I guess, each year's had one story.
Basically replaced a dungeon,
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
But that does seem to be the goal or the intended is just, it's going to be, we're going to see a dungeon release, we're going to see a chapter, we're going to see another dungeon release, and then we're going to see a zone. Now, the order could be moved around. Sure. You could shuffle the order around to accommodate what they have and what they're with. I do suspect, though, that we're going to be continuing to see the chapters in the summer quarter, simply because
good time.
That release cycle seems to be working really.
It is a great time. I mean, you got people that are just have a little more time in the summer to game. I mean, it's kind of traditional idea that we all have some more vacation days that we spend then. So why not spend them doing another version of a chapter?
Yeah.
Do you think that we might get a quality of life improvement, kind of like we did Homestead in 2017, if I can call? I
think the quality of life is the term for them. Like there's Homestead and there's also one Tamriel. We're both that. So I don't know. Like I don't know what that would entail. That's the only part with that where I'm like, would they? Maybe. Because I can think of some systems that might be appropriate to add to the game. But the only thing I could think of that would even approach the scale of that would be something like guild housing, and even then, that's something you probably want to roll with a chapter rather than just saying, "Oh yeah, no dungeon DLC this month, but we're going to do guild halls."
That's a fair point. I mean, yeah, I could see that too, that it would look a little lackluster in the kind of the patch notes and all that. I do know that from my own microcosm on the internet that people would really be happy giving up a DLC release in my own community to get a very large kind of bug fix thing. Because again, the DSO is a very solid game as it presents itself right now. But like any MMO, a game that you're working on constantly, the bugs do add up. Biggest one I've got is with Meier. Myself and a lot of the people in my community have complained that it's been really aggressive on our CPUs. It's kind of made dungeons that I could play in July are now almost unplayable for me. It just gets down to like 2 FPS out of nowhere. And I'm like, but I ran this thing 30 times, no problem. Why? Why, Meier? Why? And so things like that are harder to fix. It's really tricky because it's not flashy, a big patch like that. It's not flashy, but it would be good for the real long-term players and the ones that maybe even got scared away from bugs. I've not heard of people getting scared away, but the community seems to think that that's the thing. I don't know.
I think it's also one of these things. This is something that has to be considered very carefully. One thing, though, just kind of as a note out there, is that ZOS has been expanding its staff extensively this year.
Oh,
so
cool.
Like they picked up an entire new floor in their headquarters. Wow. So because they own it from the owners of the building. I'm not sure the full system there. They purchased out an entire additional floor and expanded into it. So they're expanding operations. They're putting more people on staff, and the game seems to be doing pretty well on that front. So if there is a massive bug fix push, I don't think it's going to replace a DLC.
Huh. Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that.
The other thing about that is, and even a massive bug fix push, is you're still trying to see a negative. It's like, oh, it was buggy, but now we fixed it. Like, it's a very hard sell just from a marketing standpoint. And it also lends credence to all of the potential naysayers out there say, oh, the game is dying, which then they can say, see, it's dying. They didn't release anything. It's a losing proposition. So, like, I've seen this fairly frequently back actually to launch, where you get people comparing it to things like Final Fantasy 14 and Realm Reborn. And it's like, no, the problem with Final Fantasy was the game was actually in a state where Square Enix was legitimately looking at having to shut it down.
Wow.
And they decided, instead of burning it out and getting as much as they could beforehand, they shut it down, and because they were in a losing position to begin with. And I don't see that at all with ESO. Because, well, there are bugs and there's stuff that's annoying, and we've covered some of these on the way through.
Sure.
A lot of this stuff does get fixed. And like you said, it's not flashy. It doesn't sell copies to say, oh, hey, that bug that meant that you had this weird sort of delay lockup when you swapped bars. Locking has been fixed because we were trying to offset stuff onto the GPU, and we since moved that back onto the CPU. So you're not going to see that anymore. And stuff like that, you can't sell copies on it. You can't sell copies on stuff like the changes with Somerset, where there were some serious changes to the architecture of the game with Somerset that moved stuff off of the CPU and onto your GPU. Oh. And like, you can't sell that.
No, you can't.
You can't say, oh yeah, no, we've changed it so it's better on your system. Okay, so what? Like, so yeah, I understand the desire to have this fixed. Like, I really do, because over the years I've been hit by a couple of times by some of the vicious bugs that were just like really aggravating. But in the end, saying I want the show to stop and everybody get off and then fix it back it's incredibly dangerous.
I think so too.
For the product cycle. Yeah.
But I also wonder but it does fit in with 2017, 2016 cycle of let's do a homestead, which I wasn't there for, but I would imagine a plethora of bug fixes got shoved in underneath of that, under that
pretty
umbrella.
much all of these pretty much with all of these, there's been a lot of bug fixes mixed in. Like, because again, you're constantly updating a live product. It's getting pushed onto the PTS. People are testing. There's some really nasty stuff that makes it on the PTS and gets fixed before it hits live.
I'm sure.
So you'll find the people who go off on the PTS and complain because it's like, oh, they want to use that as their play environment, and it doesn't accommodate that because it's not designed for that. But
no,
it is a test environment, and you can go in there and mess around and find out, oh wait, shit, this is broken and it needs to get fixed right now. And pretty reliably, the stuff that's actually destructive gets dealt with before it even makes it to live. So I understand the desire of like fixed, but
yeah,
like it's constantly being fixed. It's just not necessarily or is immediately. And I understand that. It can be frustrating at times, but I understand it.
Absolutely. And I think all in all, I mean, like I said, we're playing an extremely solid game. I really hesitate to, or I really encourage people, if you think you're going to go out there and find an MMO that lacks any bugs, I think you're going to be very hard pressed. I mean, you got World of Warcraft at 15 years old that still has egregious bugs in it still that, you know, I mean, that's 15, something like that, 13, 15 years old. It's old.
13, yeah. Yeah, 2005, I think, right?
Yeah. So a game like that, you know, still has bugs into it. And they're introduced anytime you put into a new expansion into it. I mean, anytime you add content, there's going to be something. So,
well, I mean, something we were talking about earlier was the issues with the storage containers. This is something that's new to this year.
Exactly. And
I don't know how they jury-rig these things in, but definitely something the game was not designed with the intention of.
Right.
You can kind of tell from the nature of the bugs that have popped up with them that this was something that was not in the original planned architecture, and it's been added to the game. And it's impressive that it works with as few bugs as it has, just as a nature of modifying code after release.
That's a good point. I'm very interested to see what 2019 brings, because I think it's going to be nothing but a smashing success for them, whatever they decide to bring us. That leaves us with only, 4 days before we assume we're going to get an announcement?
Something like that, yeah. Should be about, because it would be, so last year it was the first Thursday of the year.
Yep. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, about 4 days, you know, depending. Yeah. So that's really freaking cool that we're going to hear. Yeah. Very excited about that.
Looking at last year, what we're probably going to see is the stuff.
Sorry, what you cut out there?
Sorry, you're going to be slated stuff for the first quarter. So that's the stuff that came in with Dragon Bones this year. Mm-hmm. And also, when you're asking, like, will we get a quality of life thing? We probably will. Just looking back at Dragon Bones and all the stuff that came in with that, there's probably going to be quality of life stuff added in addition to the dungeon.
Well, I'm all in. I'm really, and especially, I'm very much feeling these vet dungeons nowadays. Now that I've gotten over that hurdle of, I had someone ask, when do I stop being considered a new player? And I was like, well, I'm 6 months in and I still consider myself new. Someone's like, I've been here 3 years and I still consider myself new and I've not done this sort of content. So I really like it. It's a big selling point, though. This game adds a lot to both the end game content and again, I use the word end game very loosely, but we can, I think, agree that DLC dungeons are end gamey. They're not something you take a fresh noob into that doesn't, that has never played that before. But that adds something where a lot of games don't. I mean, a lot of games get you to end game and say, well, wasn't the journey great? Okay. But the ESO has a way of making the journey exciting by adding, new story DLCs, Clockwork City, Meier. I mean, even the chapters themselves. So the journey is fun, but then the destination, they continue to pump out new things that are actually challenging and engaging. And I really think that those dungeons, the DLC dungeons, have had really positive feedback overall. I mean, I'm hearing many people say that the Wolf Hunter ones are some of their absolute favorite dungeons in the game right now. So that's really amazing. And I'm madly in love with the Dragon Bones ones right now. So that's freaking awesome that people are engaged like that and they're not just giving up. You'll see that in other games, other MMOs, where people give up on endgame because they've run it so many times and there's nothing new to it. So what do I do? Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add to that, Stark? Thoughts?
Well, you were wanting to speculate about 2019 for content.
Oh, well, go for it. If you have any ideas, I have no specifics on content except
I've got a couple of things floating around. One of them comes from a forum goer who does a Russian forum goer who does a lot of data mining, and so we do know what the next crate release is going to be.
Oh, dude.
And that's Bendari.
Do you have a link to this?
So the Khajiit trainers, yeah, I do actually.
Because I'd love to look at this too. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. So we've got we're looking at Bendari crates next. Now that could mean that the next dungeon is Khajiit themed.
Oh. People would freaking love that.
They would. It's also possible, and the rumor that keeps coming up, and I'm a little bit mixed on, is the idea that the next chapter is going to be elsewhere. Let's see.
Man, I wonder if that's one of those things that the mystery is.
Let's see.
There is a theory out there, everyone, that it's what you don't know that you find more interesting. The mystery is better than the actual reality.
Than actually finding out. Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like that in some ways. I'm not saying we shouldn't go to elsewhere ever. I'm just saying I don't know that they're gonna throw us elsewhere
this soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some dialogue that sort of supports the idea, so it's not that wacky. But yeah, that's one that's been kicking around for a while. I do have images of it. Unfortunately, right now all I'm finding is the classic scripts. So that's another possibility where it's like we might see some kind of refresher of old content being old crate content being put back in some semi-permanent way, but we don't really know what the classics are yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see.
Oh, I found old data mine stuff, but this is the whole way back. What's this? Sorry, everyone. This is very interesting content, I'm sure. We've got all kinds of stuff listed here that's not.
Something that's come up a couple of times, and this is, I don't know if this is the thing that's coming next, but there's been, way back in 2014, I think it was QuakeCon, there was a couple of systems shown off. One of those was spellcrafting. And this has been kind of a weird... Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is this weird little boondoggle, because like the story that goes with it, the developer who was working on it is one of the ones who left after the console launch. They were hired away someplace else. I don't remember where. So they're still in the industry. They're working at a different developer. And the idea was that it was actually going to be custom skill lines. You would go out, you would find, like enchanting, you would go out, you would find these various spell fragments on tablets.
Whoa.
And you'd charcoal them down and add them to your collection that way. And then you could find the tablets at various rarities. And then once you had the tablets, you could engrave spells you understood onto them in a piecemeal system. So it was like there was a potency type thing and there was an effect type that would stack together with the tablet. This was all demoed back, like I said, this was all demoed back in 2014. And it's a really cool system, but the developer who was working on it left, primarily working on it left. And so as a result, it's sort of been in the back of everybody's mind for a long time.
Yeah.
It's also sprinkled through the game, and this is something data miners keep finding. It's like in string files and something. There's references to it here and there. And every once in a while, something new gets added to it.
Huh.
So jewelry crafting had been a long requested system.
Yep, that makes sense.
Jewelry crafting actually dates back to the closed betas, original Civ testing rounds in 2013, and was phased out very early in the game's life cycle before it ever reached live. We're talking about the same time frame that Lost Capes. And it's possible we're actually looking at spellcrafting coming back. Like, I legit do not know.
Wow.
It's the system that's been teased. And the last time I saw data mine popping about it was when going to Somerset's release. So the data's still, like, some of the data is still there. It's possible. It's something that I'm just never going to completely forget about.
Yeah.
It could also be something that it's not feasible for whatever reason. But it's a cool thing. It's a thing that's been floating around for a long time. I can dig up that E3 video if you want to watch it sometime, because there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see that. I can understand how. Well, Well, I was gonna say, I can understand how spellcrafting could be amazingly exciting. It's something we've actually seen in the single player Elder Scrolls before. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's like, that's impossible, it's not. We saw that in Oblivion, you would craft spells. So the idea is, dare I say, true to Elder Scrolls lore. I don't know how you manage that in an MMO exactly. I mean, morphs kind of take us close, so maybe we're not really as far away from it as I'm thinking immediately. Morphs that let us choose the fork in the road when we would want to take a spell. I mean, that kind of lets us get a little more personal, and it does let us edit the spell. That could be really, really cool. I know one thing that I would like that World of Warcraft did, and this could quickly get out of control, so Zoss would have to be a little careful about this, but World of Warcraft added cosmetic changes to spells, and it added a lot of customizability to your character. Just being able to choose what exact spell effect happened, and they didn't go too crazy. You could only morph, I think, 3 of your spells at a time. Morph, I should say, maybe reskin. But
that was actually the name for the bear originally. Like the gray bear you get from Collector's Edition was that it was an ability reskin. So a lot of people were thinking when that came up, hey, we're going to get more of these. But that was the only one that came through. So
I actually just picked up that pack the other day, the 2100 Crown Morrowind Collector's one. Very cool pack if you guys haven't got it already. Gray bear, emotes, horse, dog with the Dwemer style on it. Very, very cool stuff.
Also that warden costume. That thing's snazzy.
Oh, it is, yeah. So that would be really, really cool. I've actually been asking that kind of just jokingly here and there in Twitch chat, saying, I've got this Templar healer that I love so much, but we've kind of switched everything to a Dark Brotherhood theme. I wouldn't mind if I could make my spells appear more of like a blackish, purplish hue to give him a little bit more feeling of almost like a Dark Templar, which again wouldn't affect any of his actual abilities, but would just be a reskin. That is something that I could see that as a quality of life, quote unquote DLC sort of thing in the future that I would be hugely behind. I don't know. WoW did it in a way where you had to get these little runes. You'd have someone craft them for you, or it had to be your crafting profession. Actually, it was an inscription, in World of Warcraft. And so people would write out these little tomes, and then you would go and you had a special UI menu that you would equip it. And it was very, very cool. It really, for people that summon things, so like for the sorcerer in here, it would be you basically having a different pet. So if you're kind of, annoyed at your clan fear or your matriarch or whatever their name is, you could actually switch that up and just make it look a little different. It would still the same combat skills, but just different appearance. Oh, I got your link here. Is it these pictures that are embedded here?
Yeah, it's the pictures that are embedded in the spoiler. Which is funny because I didn't realize. I thought we actually. Also, we don't. We just have the card back art.
Oh, I see that now. Wait, what's one above it? Crown Classics Volume 2.
Yeah, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Those have been data mined complete with store images, but we don't know what they are either. So there's like data mined that we don't have info on yet.
Bandari Peddler crates. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Name suggests a DLC or chapter will take place in elsewhere, so this says. Interesting.
Yeah. The awkward moment when I was actually looking for this and trying to do this quiet while also carrying on a conversation, and the first 3 sources I could find were myself. And I was like, well, that's awkward.
Stark spends a lot of time on the forums, as we can see. Well, I feel like we should let these fine folks go unless you have any other predictions, Stark. I'm all ears if you do.
The only other thing that comes to mind, this is another thing that comes out of that same FreeCon video. I remember there was a location teased called, I think, Sunforge.
Sunforge,
and
did you say?
The Sunforge, yeah. And if I remember correctly, that's in the I want to say the southern. Let me see if I can get it on a map.
But yeah,
so that was this location that was teased back then. Now, if I remember correctly, the map for Sunforge was actually reused for Hugh's Bane partially.
Oh.
So it's possible that was stuff that did end up in-game, just it was in Hugh's Bane instead of in Sunforge. So that might be a thing that actually did get abandoned. Otherwise, it is actually possible that the next chapter or the next story DLC is going to be there.
Hmm.
But I don't have a lot of, legitimately, I'm sitting here going, this is almost the only thing I can see in this video to game. So,
yeah. I mean, very, very, very successful year. They seem super energized for 2019. So I'm someone that I don't mind seeing some of the spoilers here and there for Crown Crate stuff. I did, by the way, for everyone out there, put the Bendari link that Stark sent me. I put that into the show notes below, just so you can see it. It's not super crazy. It's just the backing of a crate card. But if you want to take a look at that, you want to see what we're looking at, by all means, it's in there for you. I think it's going to be super successful. I was trying to say I don't mind seeing any of these spoilers myself, but I'm also very comfortable just waiting because I think we're in very good hands. So with that, Stark, I think I'm going to leave them for the week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a plan. It's been a little bit longer than usual, but yeah, let's run with this.
It's a good one. I mean, people can just take a listen to this on their drive home or whatever they're doing for the holidays as they, get settled in. We are back next Sunday, the 6th. I think the topic we discussed was maybe talking about how to do raids, like getting into them, I think, or raids, trials, whatever.
Trials. Trials and endgame is there. And we've got a couple of things on the pile here, actually, we could run through. Because we also got the Leisurman stuff. Realized we didn't actually do a thing on that yet.
Oh, that's a really good point. Oh, and we talked on Twitch about doing add-ons at some point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did. That needs to be on the list too.
Yeah, let me put that on the list. So
before we forget,
you know what? Maybe let's bump trials a bit, because something cool the guild's doing is we just absorbed a veteran trial guild into ours, or at least the process is going to happen. So and they really, really are eager to start teaching new people, because they've seen I don't know if I want to call it burnout, but they've seen. You were talking to me off air about someone that didn't exactly know the mechanics of a fight, and that can kind of leave sour taste in everyone's mouth. So they mentioned a similar story where they were seeing people, they were either unhappy in guilds because the guilds weren't doing trials, they weren't willing to teach, they weren't willing to give slots, whatever the case. So they said, well, hey, yours is about new players, let's team up, and they want to teach people. So maybe let's give it a week or so and see. We'll push trials back just a bit, and kind of see what comes of that. I might have a new angle and something to add to that specifically. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out to listen to another episode of the show. I really, really, really appreciate everyone's support here. I really appreciate that everyone that's come by the Twitch channel and said such positive things about it, and people that have joined up with the guild. If you're interested in joining, we're on PC North America. The link is in the description below, or the show notes, however you want to look at that. I'm on Twitch at twitch.tv/Kyle Dempster Studios. We will be live on New Year's Eve here and New Year's Day, so feel free to come by. I usually start about 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, so feel free to stop by if you have any questions, anything specific. Feel free to ask that there. There's always someone around in chat willing to help if I can't answer it myself. The Discord is in the show notes as well. That's a great place to get in touch with Stark and I. I'm over at Twitter at twitter.com/Kyle Dempster STU, and Stark, you're at twitter.com/
Michael J. Schwartz.
And if you need to email us, Kyle Dempster Studios at gmail.com is a place that you can do that. I'll let you guys go. Enjoy your New Year's, and keep your eyes peeled on the ESO news feed to see if we get anything exciting. Till next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.